Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Sit back and listen to interviews, discussion about books, and anything else literary. There's always something or someone new on the show. Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Behind the books, honest voices, real stories. I'm Amy Shannon, and I'm pulling back the curtain, bringing you heartfelt and real conversations with the storytellers and creatives that go beyond books. You never know where the conversation will lead us, so let's find out. Tonight we have an author with us. Thank you for joining us. Will you please introduce yourself and let people know how to contact you or find your books?
I am Talia Haven. You could find my books on Amazon, and I have a new website, taliahaven.com.
Great. And congratulations on your website.
Thank you.
So, I know you have a very interesting book, releasing, Harvest for the Deathless Children.
Yes, this is releasing the 21st.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just couldn't remember the exact date, but it's on my calendar. I've already reviewed it, so I'm just waiting for it to go live. So it's a Russian fantasy, and is this the first time that you've written something that is like with that theme of Russian fantasy, or is this something new?
Russian fantasy is new. I've been wanting to do something with it because I don't think there's a lot of emphasis on the Russian gods. The Greek Orthodox Church, from what I understand, come in there about the 900s, and they pretty much did a pretty good job of destroying any wooden idols and things that the Russians had. They really didn't have, from what I understand, temples. Everything was like the Celts. It was outside with wooden statues. So I did some research on the Russian gods and the creatures that they have like a creature that'll live in the barn and take care of the horses, and they'll have ones that sit in the house and take care of the home. And then they have the Leslie, which are the guardians of the woods. And the Leslie really fascinated me quite a bit. And I've always been interested in Baba Yaga. And Baba Yaga, she doesn't really have a backstory. It doesn't really say how she became the witch that wanders around in the woods in a chicken house that has legs. So I had a lot of fun, but you know me, once I get somebody that doesn't have a backstory, it's open season.
Let's give them one.
Yeah. So I
think
created
that's
a backstory
awesome. I just think that's awesome.
Thanks. So I created a backstory for Baba Yaga, and I created a situation where the Leslie were actually forced to have half-breeds because they'd gotten cursed. And basically the story is not a young hero or heroine. It's an elderly grandmother, actually, that really gets pretty angry and offended by the fact that she no longer has any family whatsoever, and that the Leslie took her grandson. So it's about her journey from being in the village and losing the last of her family to actually tracking down the Leslie and meeting Baba Yaga in the middle.
Yeah, so she has like it's kind of interesting how, and I like how you wrote it too, because her grief was real. You know, she lost her daughter, she lost her grandson. And sometimes that can make you like you're not straight, straight in the head. You're grieving and you're only thinking about certain things. And then when she finds out what her daughter had done, and she knew she couldn't get her daughter back, but let's take care of the grandson so nobody else can touch him.
Yes. And she was really bitter about the fact that the Leslie were actually going to have a child, and she had nobody. So
Yeah.
she ended up getting herself into a situation where she actually had to leave her village and start her journey.
Yeah, and that had to, I mean, she's leaving her home, so that had to be, it's a new thing for her. And then all of a sudden she meets this witch after she dodges some leshy. So I find, I found the whole thing very interesting. Because for one, I had never really, I didn't know much about Russian fantasies, kind of like, mythology. I'm familiar with, Greek and Roman, but that's pretty much about it because that's all like schools share, Actually, they talk about
Mhm.
Greeks and that, but, anytime I wanted to learn about something new, because the Greek and Romans, a lot of their, they have, like God and goddesses counterparts. They do the same thing, they just have a different name and they're Roman or Greek. But I found that it was like Baba Yaga was kind of like a very, very interesting character. Even though she was this witch and she did things, and I'm not going to say what she did because I don't want to spoil the book, um, it still kind of made me like her.
That was my whole intent. I wanted you to hate her because you didn't know her, and according to the old stories. Then I actually wanted you to like her, and then towards the end, I wanted you to hate her again. So
Yeah, because it's like first you assume because she's this legendary witch that, oh, I can just imagine, and then, rumors and lore and all that kind of stuff going on. And then you meet her and you kind of like her. Yeah. And, she's the kind of villain that not even a villain, but like she's the witch you love to hate.
yes,
'Cause she's so interesting and intense, and the scenes with her and Renata, and for listeners, that is the grandmother that are talking about.
yes.
I find those scenes very, they're they're entertaining. They really are. It's so
Thank you.
and I love the way the story flows. I mean, it goes so well. And um, do you think that you'll do more Russian fantasies or
I plan on
mythology or
doing it
whatever?
right now. I started on Spilled Blood and Clay, and we're going to Sumer, ancient Mesopotamia. So that's what I'm starting on now. Is called Spilled Blood and Clay. I just got started, and yes, I'm crying in my keyboard. So always crying in my keyboard when I do a novel.
Oh, yeah, I completely understand. My son came, I was reading my son something that, today that I, got in the mail, and, um, he's like, Mom, why didn't you ever write a book on autism? And I'm like, what? He's like, why haven't you ever written a book on autism? My son, he's a high functioning autistic, and
Mm-hmm.
he had bipolar, but he weaned himself off his meds, and he has his bipolar in check. And I told him, I said, well, when you were younger, I didn't want to put the spotlight on you, because, people would know, if anyone who read it, I said that, I never wanted my kids in the spotlight when they were young. So he's like, well, he goes, you can write it now. He goes, I'm a grown, his favorite thing, and I don't like to swear on the air, but his
That's
favorite
fine.
thing is, I'm a grown ass adult, Mom. I can make my own decisions.
And that's what he says all the time. Like when I ask him something or, I still have this, my youngest, William, and his twin brother, Lewis, they just turned 26. And I'm still trying to get to that point where, okay, how do you parent an adult without being too parenty? I mean, I raised my three boys by myself, and William had special needs. Um, some were very difficult. We had a lot of very difficult years. But he said that if I told his story now, that it could help other people. And that was his thinking. And I said, well, okay. So I have another thing on my list to do. And then I'm like, should it be adults or child? He goes, well, maybe you should write an adult book, but then also make a children's book from it. So he gave me more themes. So I am working on, I'm pretty much finished with my nonfiction historical book that's coming out in April. But I'm working on a children's book called Be Kind, and it kind of is linked back to my Be Kind campaign. So I can't wait to. I'm writing different stories of situations where you see act of kindness, and there's always someone in there that is not, very nice, because I want to point that kind of stuff out to kids and adults as well. So, with your book's coming out the 21st, where did the idea of the deathless children come into? Because I'm just, it's like, say I haven't read it, or anything, and first, the cover is amazing, and, brings you, as reading it tells part of the story in itself. But the thing that caught me always was the phrase deathless children. So having that, it was like, okay, what the heck is a deathless child? Is that a child who never dies, or a child who's dead but is still, I don't know, alive? So is that part of the lore or legend?
It's a little bit about their vampires. The child in the story actually does die, and he is part mortal, part wood spirit. So he is dead for several days before they actually take him into the woods and bury him with his mother. And it's the immortal part, the wood spirit, that brings him back to life. So it's a little bit on the vampire legend. He's not a vampire. He's only half wood spirit. He's a Leslie. So they call him a deathless, because he'll live the way I wrote the story is he'll live for a couple 100 years, but never as long as a Leslie. And the Leslie are not immortal. I made them that they have very, very long lives, but they have to reproduce. So the child is only part Leslie. So that's why they called it a deathless child, because it died, but it's not really dead.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. But just a phrase like that in the title, it really draws you to that. And I mean, I remember reading it and I'm like, it's a deathless child. And then I'm reading more and I'm like, oh, that's what that's what it is. So, it's like you ask yourself a question as you're reading it. You're like, when you read the beginning, it's like, okay, these are going to be the parents of this deathless child. Whenever that happens, that deathless child becomes deathless. But it's like, so how does that work? And then you kind of tell, the story shows how, the couple that is going to have this child. The male part of the couple is concerned that because his mate never really wanted children, so that part is interesting and why all of a sudden she changed her mind. But it's, it makes you think and wonder as you go through it, and you're like, where is this going to lead to? And, when you ask yourself these questions, they get answered in the story as you read more and more. So, and this is one that I've read repeatedly because sometimes you never know if you missed something. So I go back and I've read it, several times. And I just really enjoyed reading this story. In myself, I like to read, mythological stories. I like, and I like the ones where you put on a twist to their lore. Like you did your research about Russian fantasies and how things, what they looked like, how they acted. The Leslie basically, it's like this tree creature. And that's the best way I can explain it. And so I find that was very interesting, especially when the baby was first born.
Yes. Yeah, that's how the midwife figured it out, because nobody else was paying attention when the baby was born, and she actually caught sight of it when it was born before it actually became a human,
Right.
before it actually had to die. So yeah, she caught sight of it. That's how she knew to talk to the grandmother about it.
Yeah, I remember that conversation, and she's like, okay, don't tell anybody. We got to make up a story if people find out. And then she discovers the truth behind her daughter, and something that even her daughter's mate did not know about. So he lost his wife and his child. And then, Renata lost her daughter and her grandson. But when she discovered the truth, she made her own plan on what she was supposed to do. And it's like, okay, when I was reading that scene, and you have it so, like she's in the woods and she's, creating a fire, and, but the way you describe how she gets the fire going, and the bundle, which is her grandson, and all those details, it makes you like, you can practically, I could picture in my head of what was going on, and you added just enough detail to where you're kind of like, oh goodness.
Oh,
And
I lost you. I've got a charge, but for some reason I lost you. Hello?
oh, okay. Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know what happened, and next thing I knew, the whole thing was black, and you weren't talking. So I figured I'd call you back.
Okay.
Hope it doesn't interfere with too much.
No, that won't be a problem. I was just saying how the details you had from when Renata was in the woods and she was creating her fire, and the bundle, which was her grandson, and the effort she was putting into to make sure that her grandson was buried. But it was so detailed that I could picture it in my head, and then it was kind of like, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, that's kind of gross, but it's kind of interesting too. So that is like, okay, yeah, especially when you're describing how the fat breaks down, and I'm like, wow. details.
Yeah, she's a pretty bitter woman.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when she comes, she goes to the witch and, she asks, well, do you do this? And she's like, yep, I do. Not going to, disclose that so people will actually, want to read, and you if you like, and I'm speaking to the audience, if you like fantasies or mythology, legend, lore, stories, and especially those based off of real stories, but the author putting their own twist, then actually you would be very pleased with reading any of Talia Haven's books, especially the one that's coming out, Harvest of the Deathless Children, which she has a bunch of other ones. Some are short, but they have they're very impactful. Whatever the story is, she writes in detail, whether her story is a novel or a short story. It could be a paragraph, but I'm not saying she wrote a paragraph, but you can find yourself with those characters because the detail is there. But even if it's short, and writing a short story is a lot harder than writing a novel, in my opinion, because you want to make sure everything that, you want to have your beginning, middle, and end of the story. But sometimes there are people that only write short stories and then they try to write a novel, and that could be difficult as well. That's what happened to me when I first started writing. I used to write short stories and poetry as a child and a kid and teenager and even as an adult. And then when I got a computer, I thought, oh, well, I'm going to try to write a short story. And it just happened to turn into a novel. And I didn't even realize that's where it was going. The characters always tell us, which way they're going. They speak to us in ways that if you don't have an imagination, and I hope everybody has an imagination, that you might not be able to picture. But every story also allows the reader or the listener, if you're listening on audiobooks, to kind of get inside the mind of the author, but their imaginative part where they build these stories. And I found too that a lot of times there is that word world building, and usually it refers to fantasy or some type of mystical type of story. But really, when you think about it, it's every story. You are building that world, whether it's a place you made up or a place that actually exists because you are building it from your mind. So every story builds its own world. Okay, so any final thoughts about your book?
No, I'm got it out for sale. The pre-order is until the 21st, and we'll see how it does.
Well, I hope that it does very well because I found that it was a great story.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's the end of another great conversation. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you, audience, for listening. If you wish to be a guest on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast and schedule your pre-recording. Please follow this podcast on Spotify. I'm Amy Shannon. Be safe, be well, and always be kind. And I'm sorry I've been a bit tongue-tied. Thank you.
Well, I don't understand what.
Tune in here again next week for another tantalizing discussion. Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast.